Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, it's not just you. That was a weird one. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. It's always great on a Nintendo Direct Day, even a weird Nintendo Direct Day such as this one.
Maybe even better, because then there's more that we have to be like, okay, hold on. Do you follow that?
Yeah,
Do you know what that means?
What to make of all of this?
What to make of all of this? Mark, how many times are we going to talk about 2026 in this episode?
Oh, way more than I was expecting.
Way more than I was expecting. Also, happy baseball opening day to you.
Yeah, and happy baseball opening day to you well, and to all who celebrate baseball opening day.
That's right. It's an important holiday for all of us, but that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about this Nintendo Direct, but hold on. Today is March 27th. We are 6 days away from the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct. Very exciting. Mark, do you think more or less exciting now based on what we've seen today?
Ooh, I feel the stakes are higher based on what we saw today.
I think you're right. The stakes are higher. So we're going to be, next Tuesday, we're going to be doing a predictions episode where we read your predictions about what's going to happen, what you think, what you fear, what you hope will happen during that Direct. So email us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. By March 31st, that's Monday, no later than noon, and we will incorporate those into the episode. I mean, normally we do some like housekeeping stuff here at the top, but you know, patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society. You can get our NCS arcade if you're supporting us at the 8 or 16-bit levels, where Donkey Kong 94 comes out this weekend. So tune in for that. But mostly, I think, Mark, we just want to get into it, right?
Yeah.
Is there something else?
Let us do shout out our Discord because,
okay,
Switch 2 is coming fast.
That's true.
And the discussion around this Direct was a lot of fun. And so I think that one is going to be as well. So you should get in our Discord.
If you're not in our Discord, email us, Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com.
And I will send you an invitation. You can hop in there. Our Discord is popping during these Directs, and people are very insightful and good and know a lot of stuff. So get in there, and you will understand the next Direct a little bit better. All right, Mark, let's get into it. Let's break down this crazy Direct. Now, when Nintendo, puts out the call that like there's going to be a Nintendo Direct, they sometimes they lay out some parameters, but sometimes even in those parameters they do be lying, right? And this one they said 30 minutes, and it was almost 37 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like instead of rounding up, they like to round down.
They like to round down, yes.
So that way everybody's like happier, because if you said 40 minutes and it's 36 minutes, people would be like, what did they cut out?
Yeah,
what are they hiding?
Don't give that to me. Give me everything you've got. But other than that, like, you know, they said that it would be focusing on Switch 1 games. To the best of our knowledge, that is what they focused on, although two non-game things, like two non-game announcements in here.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess a few casual mentions of Switch 2, but none in the like, and this will play better on Switch 2, or like, and stay tuned for the Switch 2 edition of this, or whatever. And then obviously we didn't have any like stated time frame. Sometimes Nintendo likes to be like, for games coming out in the first half of this year, or you know, through the end of spring, or you know, whatever. And this was just like, nope, whatever, Switch games.
Yeah, and I feel like before this and before the Direct was announced, we had talked about like, why are they doing a Direct now? Is it because they're obligated to do the marketing beat for some like third-party games by the end of the fiscal year?
Right, or is there something they have to express about their own software more urgently than that?
And I feel like, and we've seen them brand things differently. Like, this was a Nintendo Direct. We've had Nintendo Direct Minis. We've had partner showcases. This to me felt like a partner showcase asterisk, like partner showcase with like a little Nintendo reveal You know, like
I mean,
like
there were 4 first-party games in here, right?
yeah, I mean, pretty much it was like at the 10-minute mark
Yeah.
each time you got some Nintendo thing, but everything else was mostly like third party um
Yes. Right.
marketing obligations. It felt like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I do. So there were 4 first-party games and then 2 like sort of system level announcements, right? Or like there was the
Yeah,
Nintendo
yeah.
Today app and the virtual game card thing that we'll talk through every single beat of this thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would characterize this as like a partner showcase with a lot of first party stuff too. It just sort of felt like a weird lumpy direct, especially because like none of the first party stuff was dated.
I think that's the most surprising thing
Yes.
to me coming out of this.
Me too.
Like, my expectation really was that we would hear more about Nintendo games, Nintendo developed games releasing for Switch in 2025 with some dates. Like, we went into this with no Nintendo Switch game, like first party game, dated for the rest of the year,
Yes.
and we came out of it with no
Right.
Nintendo first party game dated for the rest of
Dated
the
for
year.
the rest of the year.
And
in
that's
fact,
weird
we
to
got
me.
2 more for the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. It also like to me says that Nintendo's not going to put out a game until the Switch 2 comes out.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so let's if we can for a second, like, let's parse this. So we've
Yeah.
had
2 games this
two
year.
games this year.
Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in January and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition.
And we know of 2 more,
Right.
Pokemon Legends,
Mhm.
ZA, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond.
Right.
And that still remains
That's
it
still
for 2025,
right? The other
right?
the 2 new games that so Rhythm Heaven Groove and the Tomodachi Life. Hold on, I'm gonna get the title. Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream, are both like
2026
pegged for
games.
next year. Yeah.
And it's not unprecedented for Nintendo to reveal games, you know, like this far out. Last June, or I guess June 2023 is when we learned about the Princess Peach Showtime and Luigi's
Right,
Mansion 4,
right, mhm.
and those didn't release until 2024. But this is a little early for that sort of reveal, but it's not unprecedented. Yeah, I don't know. I guess really I expected to have some more clarity on what Nintendo Switch's year looked like, and I
Right.
feel like
Because what's the next opportunity for them to talk about new Switch 1 games coming out this year? It's not going to be for a while, right?
that's true, but I wonder. Like, I'm not expecting a June direct
Neither
in
am
the
I.
same way that we've had historically. Like,
I mean, I expect the Switch 2 to come out in June.
very possibly, yeah. But I wonder if, I don't know, we're gonna get like Twitter reveals of
Maybe.
like Planet Robobot port
Sure.
that was rumored. You know,
Sure,
like there's
yeah.
all these like
That would be a perfect
rumored
size for
things
that. Yes.
that could still be announced. Just interesting to me that they chose, if they do have more games coming this year, not to show them here. It also makes me think that maybe the reason they waited this close to the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal to do this direct is kind of like a don't be mad, like we have Switch 2 stuff coming next week.
Right. Yes. Oh, well, and still also did need to get some of their third-party obligations done by the end of the quarter. Like, I still also believe that's why it's happening now and not like after the Switch 2 direct or whatever.
Do you think it's possible then that, you know, Nintendo is not intending to do any other, I just find first party releases for the Switch this year? I just find that so hard to believe.
I do too. I find it so hard to believe. Just there are too many Switch 1s out there in the wild, and unless they're like really in a way that we're not used to seeing from Nintendo or from like other console manufacturers, really shift into like, no, we're about Switch 2 now. It just doesn't seem it that's very surprising to me.
Yeah, it'd be really surprising to me.
Should we go through these announcements one by one and see what we can divine about the future of Nintendo and, you know, just like the immediate future of Nintendo, right? Like there are a bunch of game announcements here, some of which I do think are like interesting and fun. A lot of them are interesting. Some I'm even going to play. So like,
Yeah,
I don't want this just to be us like reading the tea leaves for the future. The tea itself is here.
yeah, it's totally true. There maybe are not a ton of announced Nintendo first party games, but there are still games coming to
Right.
the Switch.
Right. And so the direct kicks off with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake coming out sometime this year. We knew these games were coming, and we knew they were coming out this year. So maybe a little bit of a bummer that this wasn't dated here.
Yeah, and this is the first time I think that we've seen like footage of these games. Otherwise, they've
That's
just
right.
talked about them
Just
and
been a
shown
title
logos.
card. Yeah.
It did remind me that I still need to play, or at least try to play, Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake.
Same.
I also, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo has started with third-party games in the past, but that this was what they were leading the direct with, I feel like set the tone.
Yes, except when it's a Capcom or Square Enix game. Like, I think that's not necessarily indicative because, like,
Sure, Monster Hunter Rise
Monster
or
Hunter
something.
did it a
yeah,
bunch.
if they had done that, yeah.
I think Monster Hunter Rise on its own, and then when like the Daybreak DLC came out, Sunbreak, whatever it's called, who cares? I don't play Monster Hunter. Why am I trying to name the DLC? Yeah, that sometimes they will kick off things with like bigger third party partnerships, and I think Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD2D like kind of falls into that bucket.
For sure, yeah.
The trailer ends with a new character being introduced, which then the presenter, his name.
Oh, yes.
He makes a specific point of calling out.
Did you notice somebody new?
Did you notice there was a new character here? And I was like, no, I saw that character. I did not know that she was new.
Uh-huh.
But so Dragon Quest, interested? Yes, no?
I feel like I will buy these on principle, but I don't know like that I'll ever get around to playing it, honestly.
Yep. That's how I feel too. I think it's probably a pretty safe bet. So the 3 HD 2D remake came out in like October, November last year, right? I expect that this will fall into basically that same slot. There's really no reason to release more than one of these in a calendar year, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
That's my thought.
Sorry, I'm just trying to Shinya Takahashi.
Shinya Takahashi, yes. He was like, "Did
The
you see that
host.
new character?"
Yes.
And I was like, all right, next we go to No Sleep for Kaname Date from the Somnium Files.
Yes.
Had you played any of these? It feels like the kind of game that you would have brushed up against at one point.
Right. No, I have not. I believe the first the Somnium Files is a visual novel. I think that's how the series got its start. But no, I'm not familiar with it at all. I haven't played any of them.
Yep. I don't really think we have anything else really to say about that. It's coming out July 25 this year. Next is Raido Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army, coming out June 19th, 2025. It's a remake of an Atlas like action RPG. Looks very much like an Atlas action RPG. And you're like summoning like demons and stuff.
I know that's what made me wonder, like, is this a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, or do they just really like the demon companion thing?
That's a great question. And like maybe all like Atlas games, because like Persona's a spin-off of that, and then Catherine is like a spin-off from Persona. So like all of these things are just sort of like they have a world that they live and work in, and like that's what this game is.
I do like that this character is a detective. I don't know, that always
You do
interests
like
me.
Well, there are two of them, right? There's a detective and a devil summoner.
I think they're the same person.
You think they're the same person?
I think they're both Raido.
That's great. Yeah, it comes out this summer.
Up next was Shadow Labyrinth, also coming out this summer, July 18th. And this is that dark sci-fi Pac-Man reimagining. I don't even know what you would call it.
Right.
That was revealed at the Game Awards last December.
Yeah, and it looks like kind of a Metroid-y side-scrolling action exploration game where you're like a dude with a sword and you've got like a flying Pac-Man friend that sometimes you merge with.
Yeah, it feels like a Venom thing to me.
Yeah.
Sure. That Pac-Man character. And there was even like one transformation where you're like giant and like black and covered in goo, it seemed like, and you were chomping some enemies. And like this is just This is just Venom
Yeah.
crossed with Pac-Man.
Yep. That's absolutely true. It seems kind of cool.
It does seem kind of cool.
All right. Well, we'll be tuning in for Shadow Labyrinth in July 18th. Next up, and this feels like way surprising. Patapon 1+2 Replay coming out July 11th this year. It's a bundle. You can't buy the game separately. But previously these are PSP exclusives, and there was a remake on PlayStation 4, which I know had like some kind of problems with just like input lag, with wireless controllers that presumably wouldn't be part of if you're playing this game on Switch with Joy-Cons attached. But so it's a rhythm-based like strategy game, kind of, with these cute little Patapon guys.
I remember hearing about this during the PSP era, but I've never played them before. And they look really cute. It looks really fun. I agree with you. It was kind of surprising to see them, just because I think of them as Sony properties. And even when they showed the title screen with the available July 11th, 2025,
it's a Sony Interactive.
Yeah,
right?
it's like copyright 2025 Sony Interactive Entertainment, and that it's just weird to see.
Yeah, well, and this is not the last like Sony product that we're going to see in this direct, right? Like we get it later on. So it's not just Xbox that's like seeking to put their games on, or not all of their games obviously, but like finding ways to get games on other platforms.
Well, and this, I mean, obviously we have MLB The Show, but this one specifically feels to me like the feeler games that Microsoft was putting out like in 2019, like when like Ori and the Blind Forest was on Switch, right?
Or Pentiment,
yeah, like where,
man,
like you said,
I panicked halfway through that title. I was like, am I saying is that the name of the game?
But this feels like a baby step, like we saw with Microsoft in those early days, and eventually Microsoft. The rumor is that on Switch 2, there's going to be Microsoft games up the wazoo. So
there may be a Halo game on there. We don't know.
So it'll be interesting to see how far Sony pushes this in the future.
Next up, we get Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar coming out August 27th, 2025. This is a remake or the reimagining, I guess, of the DS game Harvest Moon DS Grand Bazaar. Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon, that's the same. One series kind of became the other. Harvest Moon still exists.
But
it's not by the same people.
Yeah, that's right. It's like the name went to a different, I can't remember exactly how it worked out, but like the name went to a different publisher / developer.
Right.
And so those games still exist, but the original
but have become bad.
I think,
right?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. But the original series with
has become
continues
Story of
under
Seasons.
The Story of Seasons name. This looked really cute. Anytime I've tried a Story of Seasons game, it's always felt a little clunky to me, like too slow. I don't have the patience for it. But I did think this one looked very cute.
Also, like running surprisingly well on the Switch, especially compared. We saw a lot of like poorly running 3D environment games in this direct, and this was not one of them. Like, it looked bright, it looked colorful, it looked like it was running smoothly, which is just kind of cool. I do think, okay, so at this point we've had a handful of release dates: July, June, July, August. It is currently March.
Yeah.
There's so much time between now and summer when these games come out. And like the next direct is going to be all about Switch 2. So like those are going to be games that don't come out until summer as well, presumably.
Right.
I don't know. I think we're looking into like the face of a real dead zone for Nintendo stuff.
Do you think that, like, I'm not saying that third parties know the Switch 2 release date or anything, but do you think they're purposefully trying to time themselves out of that window to be like, okay, let's just not get in the way of when it could be launching?
I mean, I don't know. I also would think that maybe you want to launch alongside it, right? And then so people could like pick up their new Switch and have something to play besides but I mean, you have the infinite library of the Nintendo Switch anyway to play on your Switch too. So like maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and maybe it's more a question of like, can I get any coverage for my game?
Right.
When the Switch 2 is launching. I don't know. Up next, finally, after like 10 minutes into the presentation, so a little bit like close to a fourth of the way through, we get the first Nintendo first party game, and it is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond,
Mm-hmm.
still coming sometime in 2025. Still no date.
Yes, and I'm feeling frustrated about this.
This was somebody proposed this, and I'm sorry, I don't can't remember the handle of the person who did. Somebody proposed this in the Discord, saying the fact that there is no date makes me think that it is going to be timed with the Switch 2 launch, and I begin to believe that. Like, I think that is more and more likely.
Interest. So I think that is it's totally possible that is the case, and that we will learn about like a Switch 2 version of this,
Because
and
we know that those are coming.
well, and we'll get
We'll
into
get
that in
there.
a little bit. But that even if that is the case, a Metroid game cannot be the marquee system seller. Like, it just can't.
Well, I feel like, we have the examples of Wii Sports and Breath of the Wild, and arguably maybe Twilight Princess, but not really. Like, it was like Wii Sports and
Super
Breath of the
Mario
Wild
World
and Super Mario World.
and Mario 64.
But there's been, I don't know, I just feel like I don't put that much weight into launch titles,
Sure.
right? So many systems, like, you launch with weird games or things that like are trying to show off the system's new, like, think of the Nintendo DS. That was like a totally cuckoo bananas launch and absolutely
Right.
nothing that would reflect what the system is going to become. So I feel like, yeah, you could put out a new Mario Kart, a new Metroid Prime title, and then some puzzly or like party type of game, and that would be a fairly decent 4-quadrant launch on Nintendo's part, because Nintendo usually doesn't have a ton of first party launch titles anyways.
Yeah, I just think like there's got to be well, I don't know. Mario Kart is like the be all end all anyway, so maybe that's that like the thinking there has shifted enough that like that can be the thing that takes the place of a Zelda or a mainline Mario game. And also maybe those things are coming later, right? Like maybe not necessarily at launch, but like within the first year or whatever.
Right.
And again, this is us like speculating on the future and stuff that we're gonna find out about in like a week anyway.
Possibly. Now I'm not taking anything for granted. Yeah.
That's that's right. So let's talk a little bit about the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond trailer and like what we saw in it in terms of like the actual content. It takes place on planet Vuros, which is a jungle planet, has a big colossal tree in the center of it. Obviously getting like some Avatar vibes from that. The trees and like doorways, I gotta say there's a lot of vaginal shapes throughout. So the Metroid series will frequently dabble in like themes of motherhood. This seems to be a little bit more I don't know,
on the nose about it.
Yeah, there's a biological aspect of it happening here, I think. Samus is quote unexpectedly transported to this planet
and we kind of see her like phase in.
Yes, just kind of like teleport in. The big new gameplay thing, or at least like one of the hooks that they were ready to reveal to us, were psychic abilities. Your girl Samus now has psychic abilities.
Yes, and also the ability to like direct her beams.
Yes, so that they three things that they say the psychic abilities can do. They can operate mechanisms like a lever or something, open doors, great, or influence the trajectory of beams with the power of her mind.
And like the trajectories of the beams, that just made me think of Skyward Sword and that flying beetle.
Yeah,
and
well, look
maneuvering
out.
those around.
This game has like motion control stuff in it.
For sure.
And like maybe kind of a lot of it.
Yeah, I think visually this game I think looks really beautiful. I like the art style a lot. I truly believe that this can and probably will be a good game. I thought this was the most boring showcase of what a Metroid Prime game like could be. Like the things they showed off are like okay, but they don't look particularly fun. Like it doesn't seem exciting to use these psychic powers.
It doesn't. It seems like the sort of like mundane puzzle solving stuff. But like we also don't see like a boss battle or even like some of the more like interesting like I don't know, just like combat encounters. We We see her fight like some little, grunt aliens that you're gonna blow away like 1,000 times over the course of gameplay. We see a little bit of like whatever mysterious alien race is here, like bestowing their powers upon Samus and calling her the chosen one. Fine, but like, who cares? Like, in terms of a trailer, that doesn't mean anything.
No, it all feels very like that stuff that we saw in the trailer just feels so generic to me, like a
Yeah.
chosen one narrative with like a new alien race that's not the Chozo. I guess that's interesting. You know what I
But
mean?
like, they
It's just
kind of
like
just look like Ghost Chozo. I'm sure they're not Ghost Chozo, but like, they may as well be.
Yeah,
You know?
I have faith that it's going to be good, but I thought that was a bummer of a trailer.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, what was the motion control thing that you kind of shouted out? Oh,
The trajectories of the beams.
controlling the trajectory of the beams. But we also see like as she's manipulating, like this lever that opens a door, that like you're controlling like a reticle that is like moving in an arc,
Mm-hmm.
and like an arc like that, you're not doing that with a thumbstick, you're doing that with motion controls. And then there was another thing where it was like tracing out a circle on a door or something, and that's another thing where it's like you're drawing, you're doing that with motion controls. So one of my complaints with Metroid Prime 3 is that like it really leaned into the motion controlliness of the Wii, and that was a game designed by Retro Studios, just as this one is. And I feel like this is just going to have like maybe too much motion control stuff in it.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be really interesting. I haven't seen anything that like forces you to use motion controls, right? Like you could do all of that
Sure.
with a thumbstick.
Right.
We're playing Okami right now, and it has stuff that was they can be used with motion controls, but also can be done with the thumbstick, like and or like the tilt controls.
Right. Yeah. The
To
sort of
control
like aiming
the
assist stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
but so that's what my hope is, that motion controls are an option and not necessarily like a requirement.
Right. And I guess like maybe it wouldn't be the end of the world. Like you and I both really liked the Skyward Sword HD remake on Switch. And that forces you to use like, detached Joy-Con motion controls, or the insane right stick controls. And like we both really loved that. And it's just, I mean, I think it's going to be hard to know like really the scope of this game until it's like in people's hands.
For sure. And I feel like everything we're seeing here is like introductory first couple of hours stuff.
Yeah,
like
I think so too.
Like maybe you do spend the entire time on a single planet. By the end of the Metroid Prime like trilogy, they had gotten away from that, but that's how like a lot of Metroid games are, is you're just spending time on a single planet. But I'm sure that there is so much we haven't seen, like powers that are going to be blown out. Like I really think this is like 1 or 2 hours into the game type stuff.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
But it didn't do much to excite me for the experience.
I wanted to tag this little bit of copy about the game. Quote, threads intertwining beyond space and time are beginning to weave a new tale. Kind of interesting for the game to evoke time when like the Prime games are sort of this like interquill, like in the middle of the series, and that we're like tacking on another entry into this sort of sub-series. Makes me wonder if there is like an element of time travel to it, or if it's going to reach out to other points in Samus's story, or what exactly. Also, no mention or appearance of that villain guy whose name we think is Silex.
Oh yes, Silex. Yeah,
Yes.
good poll.
Thank you. He was obviously largely featured in the sort of like teaser reveal trailer from last year. And we don't see him at all here. We do see a Metroid briefly, which he had 2 Metroids like traveling with him last we saw him. So
yeah, evil Metroids.
Evil, well, yeah. No, it was giving very like Michonne Walking Dead vibes, right? With the 2 chained up Metroids floating on either side of him. But yeah, so no mention, or no mention of that guy here. So if he's a big part of it, that's we have not gotten any new information about that.
I will say the new like ruby red suit that we see Samus in, or a Samus like character,
Yeah, and
at
it's
the
like
very end.
the very end of the trailer. Yeah, go ahead.
That looks cool.
It's a cool looking. Hey,
It's a cool looking suit.
let me get at that amiibo right now. Make that amiibo. I want it. So that's it. Still no date.
Still no date.
Like we said. I don't really know if there's anything else to say about this now, right? Like I think there's a possibility that it is, like you say, a Switch 2 launch game, and there will be Switch 2 version alongside with this one. And we will possibly find that out in a week's time. But I could also see it like coming out any other time.
Yeah, oh totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, up next is a game that I feel like is just ripping off Coffee Talk almost directly, and it's Disney Villains Cursed Cafe. In fact, I haven't played Coffee Talk, but it's been on my wish list for a long time.
Oh, I thought this is one that you bought and never turned on.
No, I don't think I ever bought it even.
Okay,
Maybe
right.
I did. Maybe I do own it. It's possible that I own it. But I feel like it is such a ripoff that I kept waiting for them to say in collaboration with the creators
right.
of Coffee Talk. Disney Villains Cursed Cafe, which is available today. You are a barista behind a bar, and you are making potions for Disney villains and talking to them and like helping them with their problems and all that kind of stuff.
And the story changes based on like the advice you give them or the drinks you serve them or whatever.
It looks cute. It's a cute idea. It just feels so like much
stolen.
a ripoff.
It feels like it's a totally stolen concept. And like, come on, Disney. Why not work in collaboration with? And I mean, maybe the answer is like, Coffee Talk is like a fun, weird, progressive game with like, lots of interesting sexualities of characters and identities and what have you. And I'm sure that this Disney Villains Cursed Cafe is not going to be that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Also,
it's going to pretend Ursula is straight.
Also, why? Yeah, that's right. Also, why do it if you feel like you can get away with not doing it?
Hey, yes, true.
Up next was Witchbrook.
Yes.
Which is coming out in holiday 2025. It's like a pixel art wizard school sim that allows for up to 4-player online co-op. And I thought this looked so cute. So fun.
This was cute and fun and like a fun little surprise. I hadn't heard about this game from like any other sources before. I mean, it's just a fun looking like sim thing. And I like, obviously this is like drafting off of like the Harry Potter vibes. But I just like being able to occupy that sort of game space, or that sort of like fantasy space without it being Harry Potter.
Yeah, totally.
So like, heck yeah, I'm interested in this game whenever it comes out at the end of the year.
And it's being published by Chucklefish.
Oh, interesting. Great. I love Chucklefish. Next up is The Eternal Life of Goldman, coming out holiday 2025 as well. This one kind of, so it's got this like hand-drawn sort of cartoon, but like old cartoon art style to it. And you're an old man in some platforming challenges. He's jumping around on like a pogo cane, like Scrooge McDuck. And I don't know, it seems like a pretty cool looking like indie platformer.
Yeah, I thought it looked really beautiful.
Yep. Next up is August 7th. We've got Gradius Origins, which is a collection of like the early Gradius arcade games. Gradius, Salamander, Life Force, Gradius 2, Gradius 3, Salamander 2, and a all new game. They just made a new one, Salamander 3. Cause like, how tough can it be to make a new one of these?
I've got to say, new Konami is like sneakily doing some cool stuff.
I totally agree. These are not my kind of game necessarily.
No, me either.
These are the kind of games that I would walk up to at the. There was I believe it was a Gradius machine, but it may have been a Gradius 2 machine at the YMCA in my hometown, where like I would go for swim lessons and like would have to wait for like 15 minutes to get picked up afterwards. Like, I would just be like hanging out, and there was a Gradius 2 machine, and so I would play it all the time and would just hate the experience. But maybe Well, I don't know. It's just it's fun that this is all getting collected.
Well, and it seems like a cool package. Like,
Totally.
it has they were showing off. It has like the different versions. So you can play
Hmm.
like Japan version 1, Japan version 2, kind of like what we saw with Donkey Kong in the arcade archives. Where
Yes.
like if you're a fan of these kind of like shoot 'em ups or shmups,
Yep.
like
That's right.
there is a lot to really like here.
Yep. Yep. I think so too. A fun looking package. Then next we move on over to Rift of the Necro Dancer, which is available today. Had we seen this at Nintendo stuff before? Or was
I
it somewhere
feel like we
else?
have.
Okay.
I feel like we have.
Anyway, it's available now. It's a kind of twist on the Crypt of the Necrodancer style gameplay in that it is like lane based, highway based, like a Guitar Hero game. And there are like little enemies on the board that represent like the notes that you're playing on the controller. And the enemies have like different behaviors. So sometimes they like move like one step to the left or right, with each beat. Sometimes they you hit them and they get knocked back, so you have to like hit them twice and stuff like that.
Yep.
So kind of cool. They said that there is a Celeste Music paid DLC pack coming out, which is neat, great. Has Celeste music and Celeste characters in it. We see Madeline in one of those, and then they teased more DLC on the way. And I spotted that Pizza Tower guy. So like, it seems like the Necrodancer people have got their feelers out to other developers, right? They did that collaboration with Nintendo of Cadence of Hyrule, and then they had these relationships with these other indie developers. It just seems neat. They've got like the Shovel Knight thing going on.
Yeah. I like when these like indie developers do collaborations.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
a lot of fun. Up next was Tamagotchi Plaza.
Right? We have to be very careful here because as children of the 80s and 90s, we definitely said this wrong.
Yeah, Tamagotchi. That's how I've been saying
Right.
it my entire life.
Yeah, me
so
too.
good to know. Tamagotchi Plaza releases June 27th, 2025. And this is a game where you play as a Tamagotchi, and there are other types like of Tamagotchis that are wandering around, and there are 12 different stores that need your help.
And the need your help, it seems like each one of those is like a separate little mini game or set of mini games that you play.
I laughed really hard at the brushing the teeth one, at the dentist one.
Yeah,
where,
kind
like,
of a
you
nightmare, right?
where you brush the top teeth and then
Uh-huh.
also the bottom teeth. To me, it looked very delightful. It really made me laugh. Over 100 new classic Tamagotchis for you to interact with. Yeah, I mean, not really my thing, but it looked cute.
Yep, I'll agree with that. Comes out June 27th this year. And then next, we get our second Nintendo first party game. We get another look at Pokemon Legends ZA.
ZA.
ZA. Oh my! I'm never gonna commit this to memory. Still no date on this one.
Right, another nebulous 2025.
Which is less. I'm less worried about that because during the Pokemon Day stuff, they were like, it's going to be the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of like, yeah, we'll know closer to the end of the year. A lot of the same like territory that we've treaded in previous trailers for Pokemon Legends ZA, except we get a look finally now into Night in Lumio City, and the ZA Royale, which is like a sort of Pokemon tournament that like a free roaming Pokemon tournament that happens every night.
Yeah, it's like the Purge.
It is like the Purge.
It's like when the sun goes down in Lumio City, the best Pokemon trainers hit the streets to beat each other up.
Yeah, I mean the 100%, and like a lot of it is like taking place in those wild areas, which are like little parks within the city. But then there's also like footage in the trailer of like sneaking up on people who are like on a rooftop deck. You're like, it's nighttime, you're mine.
Yeah. But it seems like we now understand where the name comes from, maybe.
Yeah.
Because in this battle royale, you start in rank Z, and your goal is to work your way up to rank A.
Pretty cool. I like that. I think that's good. And when you reach rank A, Mark, you have a wish granted.
That's very wicked.
Yes, it is. So yeah, I don't know. This it was a little bit of a bummer to see the game's performance on the in the trailer as part of the Pokemon Day presents,
which is February 27th.
which is February 27th. Thank you. I think the game performance looked worse today.
Yeah, I think I just kind of like my eyes just glaze over a little bit
Sure,
during
right.
the Pokemon parts of it. Because I didn't really clock that, but I also wasn't paying very close attention.
I mean, on the flip side, like the gameplay looks like pretty cool and interesting, and like I can see getting into this one. I just wish it looked better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Up next was a surprise. It
Yes.
was Rhythm Heaven Groove. This is another 2026 game coming from Nintendo. We haven't had a Rhythm Heaven game since the 3DS, and um, even that was like actually late in life,
Mm-hmm.
3DS entry, and that was more of a greatest hits. I can't remember what that one was called, but Rhythm Heaven Groove seems to be an all new game that is coming to Nintendo Switch. This is a franchise that I wasn't sure we were ever going to see
Right.
a new entry, and I thought it was very possible that Rhythm Heaven was being laid to rest. But
And this makes perfect sense to me as the kind of game that they would be putting out on Switch 1 post Switch 2 release.
yeah, totally.
Right? Where it's like everyone can play this game. It doesn't like graphical fidelity is not really going to matter here. And like it's just going to be like a fun, accessible thing that all 150 million Switch owners can play.
And
right?
from Nintendo's perspective, is like smaller teams making it.
Totally.
They don't have to have they're necessarily like A teams on it. I don't.
It's nuts that it's a 2026 game though.
It is nuts that it's a 2026 game. It is. And as happy as I am to have a new Rhythm Heaven, I found this trailer really obnoxious.
Yeah.
I think it was like the character's voice or whatever, just really grating.
Yeah. Yeah. And like they kept using the same like sung audio clip that sounded like they were saying happy birthday Dave. Um and like yeah, I expect a lot of the music to really rule when like we get into it like
yes,
it
yeah,
always does.
I really like the Rhythm Heaven games.
Yeah.
And so I am excited that the franchise lives and that we're getting a new entry. But I guess just like with Metroid Prime Beyond, I did not feel like this was a very good showcase
Yeah.
for what fun those games can be.
And like this is a promise of a Rhythm Heaven game to come eventually though. Like it's going to be almost like at the very least it's going to be 9 months until this game
it
comes
could be
out.
yeah this one feels like a weird one to have such a long like hype cycle for.
Absolutely. There's no reason for me to be like thinking about a new Rhythm Heaven game for a year.
Yeah. Yes. Look, maybe it proves the point, and this is what Nintendo was hoping to get out of it, is it proves the point that Switch games are going to be coming next year. That we are not
Yes.
they have previously said it, and investor relations, they have talked about we're still creating new games for Switch, and we intend to continue to support the Switch into the future. So maybe that is the purpose of this, and it isn't really to hype people up for a new Rhythm Heaven game. It is to prove a point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that tracks, but it is also like but where are the games you're putting out this year?
Right.
Because right now we have 2.
Yeah.
And Mark, there are 9 months left in this year.
Yep.
That's like not support. More than 2 like Game Boy Advance games came out last year. You know what I mean? Like you gotta really, really it just doesn't actually seem like a bunch of support. And also there's like nothing really to talk about here other than like this is a new Rhythm Heaven game.
Yep.
If there's a new angle on it or something, we don't know what that is. Next, we move out of the realm of talking about games, new games that is, and into the realm of how you interact with your digital library. Virtual game cards are introduced, planned to be released, or the via system update by the end of April this year.
Yeah, this was a real surprise to me.
I agree. And is something that, so we'll get into like the nitty gritty of how this works, but basically what it does is it can turn your digital games into digital game cards, which then theoretically make it easier for you to share them among your own like network of in-person people on the same account, right?
Right. So yeah, like I think what is so surprising to me is that I guess I'm wondering what the genesis for this idea was. Like, was Nintendo trying to solve and it can be both things at the same time. Was Nintendo trying to solve a problem for like players, for customers? Was Nintendo trying to solve a problem for itself? And what was the problem for itself that it was trying to solve by doing this? Because currently, you can share games like that you bought digitally, um, if like with yourself, because if you can designate a Nintendo Switch system as like your primary system and a second Nintendo Switch system as your secondary system. And the secondary system can play games if it's connected to Wi-Fi and they
That's right.
can't be
Yes.
and they can be played at the same time. Like there's like a way to
Yes.
like make that happen. But what these virtual game cards do is, like you were saying, basically trying to reproduce the experience of buying a physical game cart and being able to like switch that between systems, share that with people you know. And so the limitations around this are similar to the limitations you would have around physically sharing a game card.
Except I can't physically share a digital game card with you, for example.
That's right.
Yeah.
You have to be it's either like with your it's all tied to Nintendo accounts.
Right.
So if you and I were on a family Nintendo Switch Online account,
Which insanely we are not.
then well, and the reason we're not
Yes.
is so that way we can each buy console, like the like controllers and stuff that they give out. Isn't that why we did it?
That's probably, yeah. No, that's a great point. That we both use the Nintendo Switch account for things that you could only get like one shot at per
I think
account.
that's right.
Yeah.
I feel like, or at least we think that's a limitation, so that's why we've never done it. Anyways,
Right.
but you're right. It's not like you can just share the virtual game cart with anybody randomly. They have to be part of your Nintendo Switch Online network in
Right.
order for you to do that.
And if you are sharing with someone in your family, that that game cart goes with them, that virtual game cart goes with them for 14 days and then is automatically returned to the original machine after that period.
I think what is nice about this is the fact that the initial transfer requires an internet connection,
Mhm.
and the systems has to be physically present.
Right. They have to be on the same local Wi-Fi. Right.
But once you do that, like that second system doesn't have to be online all the time to play that game, which is how the primary secondary system kind of like works today.
Right. And like that is I think it's especially useful for, and like I am going to try it and find out, useful for people that have a Switch Lite as something that they want to just like travel with.
Right.
And have this like a little bit smaller form factor, but still like having their OLED, or coming up soon Switch 2 back at home. That like, if I could, because if you're traveling, a lot of times you're going to be on like weird hotel Wi-Fi where like you can't bring up a browser and therefore can't connect, or you're going to be on a plane or on the bus or whatever. And if you're using these digital game cards, that you can actually play the game on your secondary Switch without having it ping the internet.
Yep. Also, at least for now, all of this is going to be optional.
Optional.
So if you want to continue using the current like primary, secondary Switch system, you will be able to do that. There will be a option in like user settings for you to toggle this on, or I guess off if you want to use the original system. So
sorry, just one more thing I
yeah.
wanted to add. That there's a little note about when you loan games out and then they're automatically returned after 14 days. On the screen it said save data will not be erased when returning virtual game cards, which means that first of all, it means that when you are lending someone your game, you are not also lending them your save file. So if that's of concern, or maybe that is now a concern, that you're letting someone borrow a game but they're starting it from the beginning. And that when they lose access to it, it's not as though they lose access to the save file. You could lend it to them again, and they could pick up their save right from where they were.
So my impression is that, generally speaking, this is an improvement over what exists today.
Yes.
For most use cases.
I agree. It's mostly like a different approach, and the fact that you can still use the old approach makes me think that like it's pretty good, especially when like, what's the method for sharing digital games on any other platform?
Right.
Like there just isn't one.
Right. That's why I think this is so interesting, because maybe it benefits Nintendo in the way that it encourages people who previously were like, I want to buy physical games so that way I can,
Right.
like share it with my kids or my friends or whatever. This chips away at that hesitation and gets more people to buy digitally, which is of course better for Nintendo, because they're not giving away part of the revenue to like a physical store.
Right. Well, and I mean, like, honestly, this like encourages for me for like my nieces, right, to just like buy them one digital copy of a game, or like just give them Nintendo gift cards, and one of them can buy a game that they can then like share between them digitally.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's awesome.
Yeah, so like that's what it is. To me, it seems like an improvement on the current system, and that's what makes me think, why is Nintendo doing it? Why is Nintendo pursuing it? And I feel like there has to be some sort of like business gain for them in doing this, because I think both things can be true. I think it'd be good for Nintendo and better for
Right.
consumers than the current system.
I mean, it just means that they're just controlling it a little bit more, right? That like if you have a physical game, that's something that you sell back that gets resold, that theoretically gets like one sales taken out of like Nintendo's
Right.
pocket. But if you buy a digital version because you're like, I can still share this with my sister, then like that's Nintendo's buck always. And if you're sharing with your sister because she's on the same family plan as you, and then 14 days runs up and she's like, let me borrow it again, and you're like, no, I'm enjoying it, then maybe she's compelled to buy the game.
Right. Yeah.
So like it is, I think it's a pretty it's a convenient thing for people to use, that you don't have to if you don't want to. And I do see what's in it for Nintendo. Like, it makes sense to me.
And I think you're right. Like, who else is doing something like this? Who else is? And I think thinking of them as like, well, how do we replicate the physical card experience
Right.
digitally is a really smart way to think about it.
Well, and like it's so interesting. So like Nintendo's got this obviously very nice like digital package to explain this. And they set up the problem of like, when you have a physical game, you can pop the card into a different Switch and play it right away. But you can't exactly do that when you have a digital copy. And then the voice says, "Here's what we came up with." And I think there's something so sincere about that. Like, I don't know, does this work?
Yeah.
That is like compellingly Nintendo to me, of like, yeah, here's an option. Let's try it together. Who knows if this is a program that lasts forever? But like for right now, we're doing virtual cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I really think that it's a very cool idea, and a complete surprise.
Yeah. And of the two system level non-game complete surprises that are in this direct, this is the one that I think is successful.
Yes.
Yes.
So on the Nintendo website where they explain this all,
Let's get into it. I love
there's
this.
some fine print, and I saw this that it was spotted by I Am Fake 2 on Famine Boards, but other outlets have picked it up. I don't really know the origin of it, but that's where I saw it. There is some fine print talking about compatible systems must be linked to a Nintendo account to use virtual game cards, Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games, and Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, edition capitalized, can only be loaded on a Nintendo Switch 2 system.
So on and so on. It keeps going. And that all makes sense. A Switch 2 exclusive game can only be on a Switch 2. You can't load it onto a Switch Lite or whatever. But the inclusion of the language Nintendo Switch 2 edition implies something that I think we've all like intuited at one point or another. But like, this is an admission that there are Nintendo Switch 2 versions of games that would presumably also have Nintendo Switch 1 versions.
Yes, because they are not Nintendo Switch 2 exclusives.
Yes.
But they are Nintendo Switch 2
Yes.
editions, of games.
So that blows the doors open, right?
Yeah, I mean, what does this mean? Does it mean that there will be two, it makes sense to me that, let's just say as an example, Metroid Prime 4 is one of these games, that on shelves there could be two versions. There could be a Nintendo Switch version and a Nintendo Switch 2 edition. I think it's also possible that you could buy the, let's say that I guess it raises questions. Like, if you buy a Nintendo Switch game, and is there going to be an upgrade path where you spend $20, $10, whatever, to unlock whatever special features are in a Nintendo Switch 2 edition if you're playing on a Switch 2, or
possibly, yeah.
do you have to spend $60 and $70 to have one on both. Do you know what I? Do you know what I'm getting
totally.
at?
Well, and it also like kind of begs the question of like, what could a Switch 2 edition of, is that just is that something that's happening for new games, or like is there a Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition
Right.
that includes the DLC and like runs better? And is that just like the new thing? We see that with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Do we see that with Super Smash Brothers Ultimate? Like, kind of the sky's the limit here. But we also don't know like how much they want to approach that limit. Are we going to get like all of these games? Not obviously not all of them, but like the big guns. Are they bringing back all the big guns?
Right. Yeah, totally. And like I don't necessarily think this is where they'll end up going with it, just because I think the sales of a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Nintendo Switch games are not going to be as great, but it opens the door to not needing a Smash game immediately
Totally.
if you can resell Smash Ultimate with all the DLC and everything to some people.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It hopefully I feel like this is one of the things that I would love to learn more about next week, but I don't know how much time they're
Right.
going to spend on
It
explaining
feels
the nitty-gritty.
very dry.
But
Right?
but remember that January 2017 Nintendo
Great
Switch
point. Yes.
presentation was not all slick. Like some of it was really dry, and I wouldn't mind if they spend time getting into this like nitty-gritty
Right.
next week.
Right. Or, well, we can talk about where else they can get into the nitty gritty.
That's right.
A little bit later in the episode.
Next up, we got a sizzle reel.
Yep. High on Life coming out May 6th.
Star Overdrive coming out April 10th.
The Wandering Village coming out July 17th.
King of Meat sometime in 2025.
Lose Lagoon coming out sometime summer 2025.
Name. And then we saw Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, which is
not a Famicom Detective
not
Club
a Famicom
title.
Detective Club title, releasing May 21st. And I don't know if this is one that you were thinking of, but this looked rough to me.
Yeah, High
when
on
we saw
Life
it.
also looked
Yeah.
really, really crappy. On this is a game that came out on like all the other systems like last year sometime. But yeah, just looked not a lot of good lighting and textures and things running poorly. Then we move on to Saga Frontier 2 Remastered. Interesting to me that Square Enix is really rolling out these Saga remakes.
I've lost track of
late.
how many
I know
there have been.
The only note I have here is that I really just love the hand-drawn backgrounds and the like chunky pixel art characters.
It really does look very nice.
It includes brand new events, but is mostly just Saga Frontier 2. I said this in the Discord, but man, I wish I didn't hate these games.
I've never tried one.
They're so pretty.
Yeah,
But
I've never
like,
tried one.
Really quite bad.
So is Saga Frontier? Saga Frontier is different from the Saga series, right? As in, like, one is a spin-off. I'm assuming Frontier is a spin-off.
Yeah,
of...
like Romance Saga or Romancing Saga or whatever it is. I believe that's a spin-off of the Saga Frontier series.
Oh, okay.
They're all Square Enix.
Right.
And in North America, we know the first couple Saga games on Game Boy as the Final Fantasy Legends games.
Okay.
So there were 3 of them on Game Boy, and I played the heck out of a couple of them. Anyway, I will not be picking this up.
Next up is Monument Valley and Monument Valley 2, releasing April 15th and includes all the DLC. And then Monument Valley 3 releasing summer 2025.
Yep. So those are the Monument Valley games. And then Everybody's Golf Hot Shots comes out sometime this year. This is another one that like previously a PlayStation, a Sony exclusive, and then like PC and phones and stuff. But yeah, coming to Nintendo, coming to Switch.
Yeah, crazy
stuff.
Then we get Marvel Comic Invasion.
Cosmic Invasion.
Cosmic Invasion, yes. Marvel Cosmic Invasion releasing holiday 2025. This is a brawler from Emu, the team behind Streets of Rage 4 and TMNT Shredder's Revenge. And like those games, this looks great to me.
It looks like a rad beat 'em up where you are. There's some sort of intergalactic threat that the Avengers Plus are teaming up to fight. It says you pair up as 2 heroes from a roster of 15, and you swap between the characters like at any point, even kind of like mid combo. It looks like. The characters that we saw are Captain America, Phyla-Vell, who is a like Captain Marvel / like Quasar outer space character, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Venom, Nova, and Storm. So we've not seen all of the characters yet that are going to be in this game. I don't know. 4-player online co-op and local co-op seems really cool. I'm very excited about this game. Loved Shredder's Revenge, and I love these Marvel characters. So yeah, bring it on.
And then we had the final game reveal from Nintendo of the Direct.
Which they teed up that way,
Uh-huh.
right? This is our final game reveal, and then like afterwards they were like, "Oh, and we're still going."
Uh-huh. But the final game reveal is another kind of like long dormant series that is being brought back for 2026, and that is Tamagotchi Life. This one is called Living the Dream.
Yes. So the Tamagotchi Life games are like, how even to describe? There are like Mii's that are living together in, like, previously it's been like an apartment building, or like they live in a city or something, and you like answer questions about them, and they go on like little mission. It's not like a direct control. You're not exploring a space, but just like weird stuff happens to these little Mii guys.
Yeah, kind of like a life sim type
Kinda,
thing.
yeah.
I've never played any of these games.
Yeah, likewise.
And I feel like the Nintendo DS era was when the series started. And
Is that first game a DS? There aren't that many of these games, right? Like
I
there's
don't think so.
there's Tomodachi Life, and there was Miitomo, which is like in a similar vein. That was the phone version of this.
Okay, so the series start. Oh no, maybe it's a 3DS series.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, looks like the first game released in 2014 in the US.
Okay,
And
so not that long. I mean, 12 years dormant. Is
so
still, yeah.
there was a Nintendo DS exclusive title called Tamagotchi Collection, and then Tamagotchi Life was the first one that released worldwide.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know. I have no experience with these. The trailers seem super bizarre.
Really weird. Yes. Well, and like anytime you're like putting Mii's into a space and being like, all right, they have to like exist, and not just like drive a cart or play volleyball or whatever. Yeah, they're breakdancing, they're like sharing ice cream, they're being chased by giant versions of someone in their dream, and like talking to each other in these like scary robot voices. I don't know what to make of this. It's another one coming out in 2026. This again makes sense to me as a like super late period Switch game. But yeah, I don't know. Something that we'll have to figure out as we get closer to it, I think.
And then finally, they throw to Miyamoto
to
present one last thing that is not a game trailer.
And they tee us up for this specifically to be like, this is not a game, but here's Mr. Miyamoto.
And Miyamoto is there to introduce something called Nintendo Today, a new mobile phone app that Nintendo is hoping to use to deliver news and other updates directly to you, dear listener.
And to you, dear Mark, and to me, dear Patrick. Yeah, so it's as though they have developed this app as a social media feed for just Nintendo stuff, right? Updates, content about characters. I watched a Pikmin motion comic on it today. I watched a video from one of the like Hyrule concerts, the Zelda concerts. They have a calendar that shows like events, be they real world events that are Nintendo related, like directs. You can have it tell you when games are being released on the NSO. You can have it tell you about in-game events like holidays in Animal Crossing, or like events in Splatoon, although the upcoming Springfest, Splatfest is not in there for some reason. And just express that on a calendar. So it has a calendar feed and like a feed view. And this feels weird.
Yeah, it does feel weird. My first thought was that in some ways it's kind of replicating like when I visited Japan, but also when I was in Taiwan over Christmas, they had like in game stores and at the Nintendo stores in Japan, like a physical like quarterly magazine type thing that was all like marketing and they just gave it out for free. Like you could just take one. And this kind of reminded me of a digital version of that, where it's like, I don't know. There is something that feels like that I thought was fun. I thought like having like the magazine was really fun, and I wanted them to like. I thought it'd be great if they would introduce that same sort of thing in North America, and so maybe this is close to that. I I'm torn. I don't hate this.
Right.
And I
Same.
conceptually I can see how they could um put some fun things in there that would make me interested in looking at it. But then there's also something that feels so crass about having like an app that is purely dedicated to marketing to me.
Yes. I mean, 100%. Um, the thing that is like tough to sort of reconcile is that like following updates on Nintendo stuff is part of what keeps me on social media platforms that I don't want to be on
Uh-huh.
anymore. And you know, having just this Nintendo app is not going to give me, in addition to Nintendo announcements, but also like other people's perspectives on that. Which like maybe that's better, maybe that's worse. Um, uh, it just it's I don't know what to make of this thing. Because
Yeah,
I think you're right in that it does feel very crass. But like I am seeking out that content other places anyway.
right. And it definitely gives Nintendo a way to very carefully control their message.
Which like totally valid, right? Because Nintendo went like pretty hard into Twitter, right? Like they're not as well represented on the other social media apps as they were on Twitter. And Twitter you can't like be on for very long before you run into like a neo-Nazi or like an Elon Musk fanboy that's like like there's just nasty stuff on that site now.
Mhm.
And they saw the need to pivot and we're like, we'll just do our own thing.
Yeah. I and also I don't want to, because I downloaded it. I don't know if you
So did I,
downloaded it.
yeah.
Like I downloaded it. I have it on my phone right now. I don't have any of the notifications turned on. Um
It defaults to notifications off.
which I think is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can get fairly granular with what the notifications will be. I am really I feel like it's hard to judge anything like this on day one.
Totally.
Right? I think there is the potential for this to turn into something that's kind of fun, and cool and useful even, for somebody who's like really tapped into Nintendo like we are. I don't think it's there today, but I am
I
interested to
agree.
see how it evolves.
Well, so we mentioned that like there's gonna be a lot of like minutia of like how things work with the Switch 2, right? And they have specifically said that like that app is going to be the place to go to find like news and updates about Switch 2
Yeah, I think they said like starting
next week.
next
Yeah.
week, like every day there's going to be a new bit of Switch 2 information on there.
Right. And Nintendo has a history of doing this kind of thing, like in the lead up to was it Brawl or Melee Smash
Brawl.
Brothers? Where they had the dojo, which is a website that got updated every day with like new information. Sometimes it was like, here's a new character, and sometimes it was like, oh, the maximum tomato now does 98%, healing. Uh, yeah. So like, this is just sort of a take on that, and it makes me wonder if like, are they still going to be pushing those kinds of granular updates to Twitter? Like, is that still gonna exist, or are they gonna phase that out in favor of this app?
Yeah, and maybe that is the plan, is to like the dream is to like phase it out, and be able to use the app as their like the primary way that they're talking to fans.
Even though there will be like social media accounts that like basically take exactly what's on there and put it up on Twitter and Instagram and what have you.
Right. And I think maybe they'll continue to have like into the future. I mean, who knows what will happen, but like, have a presence on, although they have in mind, like they don't have an official presence on Threads or an official
Blue
presence
Sky,
on like
right?
Blue Sky. So yeah, maybe they are fine seeding that ground to like fan accounts.
I don't like what I'm about to say, but in some ways this is Nintendo's Truth Social. You know what I mean?
The thing, I mean, yes, yeah. Let me acknowledge that you're absolutely
Thank
right. You're
you.
100% correct. You're 100% correct. What I think will be kind of like, what I want from this is personality. And
Yes.
what I'm worried it'll be is really like like antiseptic, just very clinical. Here's like our press
Yeah.
release
Yeah.
in and I feel like I can get that elsewhere. When I turn on the Nintendo Switch, there's like a news feed. Like I don't feel like I am like
Right.
that there's like a dearth of places that I can engage with official Nintendo like news updates that they want.
Sure. I
It's
mean, you and I are Nintendo news junkies, right? Like we're usually a couple days ahead of their officially released news, right?
right.
Um, but like, yeah, it's you're right that like personality is the kind of. I mean, like, did you watch the Pikmin motion comic? Did you
I haven't yet. I haven't yet.
like watch the concert video?
Uh-huh.
If they're able to like keep up a steady stream of that kind of stuff, and obviously it is not there yet because those are the two fun things that I saw on there today. But like if they keep adding to it and I forget about the thing for like a week and then I'm like, oh hey, and I can like watch some like fun videos about if they have like interviews with like Sakamoto because they're
That would
like
be great.
you know what I
I
mean?
would love that. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
like that can totally be a home for like
The ask the developer
ask the
stuff. Yeah.
developers for like treehouse style
Mhm.
content. I think that would be really cool for that.
But
And they will need a like fire hose marketing thing this year as they launch a new system. And I think it's probably smart to not rely on Twitter. I just don't know how they're going to get people to like migrate over to this thing.
right, and it's totally a chicken and egg situation because um is the content enough engaging to keep people there after they download it? Cuz you download it today, you look at it and it's still like you said it still has a lot to prove. I'm just not interested in downloading an official Nintendo app that is just going to serve me Nintendo press releases. It's
Yes.
like, "Oh, that is so not interesting to me." But yeah, if you're like if this is a place that I can discover that a new Ask the Developer got published, that's the kind of stuff that keeps me engaged. That's the kind of stuff that is interesting to me. Motion comics, great. Like do stuff like that. Yeah, for sure. Have it turn it into, that I can expect every Thursday that there's going to be a new this thing.
Right. I mean, like the calendar is interesting too, though, especially when like they did this online playtest thing. So like, who knows what the future of like Switch and Switch 2 games are going to be? Tamagotchi Life is obviously going to have like in-game events, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, all these things. If you can just like glance at the calendar and be like, oh, I should pop into Tetris 99 because there's
Yeah.
Tetris Maximus Cup or
Yeah,
whatever.
totally.
And like the game is really or the app is really smart about like you opt into which games you're interested in having like calendar things about and you can turn them off and you can turn them off forever, you can turn them off for 30 days, or you can turn them off until you turn the game on again, which is fascinating.
It
right?
is.
If
Yeah.
you're like, don't tell me any more about Splatoon until I get back to playing it, and then the next time you turn Splatoon on, bam, it's gonna talk to the internet, which talks to the app, which updates your calendar with those things.
I agree. I think that in some ways stuff like that, like it was very clearly thought went into it. I feel like it was very thoughtfully
Yes.
done.
Yes.
I really think the potential is there. I'm not writing it off entirely.
Right.
It's just like I see what is there today and I'm not very interested, but I do think that if they are willing to put like the resources behind it, it could turn into something that is more engaging.
Yeah, it just is like it really it competes with every other social media
Right.
thing ever, which is an infinite amount of content, right? And Nintendo's never going to be able to put out an infinite amount of content on this thing. But like, I don't want another thing to just scroll endlessly, right?
Yeah, but I feel like even if they don't, like you said, like I don't want to scroll it endlessly, but if there is appointment stuff that I'm like, I'm gonna check out the Nintendo app on this date because I know
Right.
that they're gonna do something that I'm interested in, like that's more engagement from the Nintendo app than I am doing right now. You know what I mean? And then you
Yes,
can
totally.
they could eventually build like a more complex like editorial schedule or whatever. I have no idea what their plans are for this.
Right.
I just really hope it's beyond and here's today's press release and
Right. Well, I mean, what's interesting is like this is so much in line with like what Nintendo had done like through the early days of like Nintendo Power, right? That this is just like the Nintendo Power, the app, which like the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like, yeah, that's kind of hopefully like if they had like a classified information section and like all this kind of with like tips on how to like get through games and stuff like that, like I think that the potential is absolutely here for this to be like a weird, engaging Nintendo curiosity for however long they decide to keep it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, right now it's just kind of like, what is this thing?
Do you think that this is one of the fruits of that, like, Nintendo's Systems Inc. that they
Gotta
partnered
be,
with
right?
like DNA on, and that this, I think you have to have a free Nintendo account in order
Mhm.
to, like, see the content and everything. To me, this just feels yeah, like an outgrowth of that, like the importance of Nintendo accounts in keeping in like Nintendo being able to keep in touch with you. Yeah,
Right. No, you're
like
right. Yes.
and I would be interested if this is one of the because they have now they have what 3 4 different apps. They have the parental controls app, they have the Nintendo Switch Online app, they have the Nintendo Music app, and they're now supporting
Nintendo
this
Today.
Nintendo Today app.
Yeah, no, it's and like those are all like theoretically things that you would be interacting with like regularly. If it does make me wonder like why some of these things aren't combined into, and I guess like Google doesn't combine their apps, right? Like you have a Gmail app and you have a Google Drive app and you have a Google Docs app and they're all separate. Even though when you're interacting with it on like a web-based thing, it's all kind of integrated together. So maybe that complaint doesn't make any sense, but yeah, just a lot of apps floating around here.
Yeah, and interesting to see them, like lean into mobile apps, even though
Right.
seemingly like eagerly. Um, when previously they had been gun shy about like mobile games. So they see the value of like having these touch points on the phone,
Right.
but it's all just supposed to drive you back, like they've talked about forever, drive you back to their hardware, their
Right.
games.
I mean, great point. To date, there is no way to spend money in the Nintendo Switch app or whatever it's called, the Nintendo Today app. And also, unless you consider the whole thing an ad, there are no ads in it.
Right. But yeah, the whole thing
The
is
whole
an
thing is an
ad.
I have the Pikmin 4 theme on mine. What theme did you go with?
Oh, I just went with random because you have the opportunity
Okay,
to
yes.
choose
Mhm.
random. Right now, it's the Pikmin one.
Yeah.
But I assume that tomorrow or some other time it will shuffle to be something else.
You think it randomly selects every day?
That's what it. I have no idea what the
Yeah.
timeline is, but it did say that. Or maybe it doesn't shuffle. Maybe it just randomly picked one. Maybe that's what it was doing.
That's
I thought
my
that it would
assumption.
randomly shuffling it. Anyways, I have the Pikmin one currently.
Pikmin 1 is delightful. And I mean, I guess we didn't mention it, but you and I spent a lot of time on Pikmin Bloom, so it's just like I'm like, yeah, that's what Nintendo phone apps
Used
look
to.
like.
I'm Pikmin Bloom is in my past now. But,
Oh, used to. It's gone now.
I just couldn't get over I am really limiting the notifications on my phone to
Yes.
just the essentials,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, Pikmin Bloom did not make the cut as essential, and it's become totally out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But I feel less stressed out by having so many fewer notifications. That the trade-off, at least at this point, has been worth it to me. So
Very
we'll
good.
see.
Very good. Well, all right. That's
Oh, sorry. One other thing about
Yes.
Nintendo today. Do you think you are going to put a widget on your home screen? Because that's
No.
another capability of it is you can put like a calendar or something else, like the latest like news feed or something like that.
No, I don't have any widgets on my phone. I'm all icons.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of those in poorly organized folders.
I haven't put a widget yet. This is another one where it's like, earn it. Like show me that there's value in this,
Right.
and then maybe it'll make sense to put it on my home screen.
Yeah, I mean, it will be very interesting to see in the next week when if they do indeed start putting updates about Switch 2 exclusively on this app. Obviously people will be reposting them other places, but I think that will genuinely drive people to the app.
Yeah, I would check every day if there's
Yeah.
something that that is there that is not just like a cut up press release of something that they talked about previously.
Right, and that'll really be the differentiating factor. But yeah, if there are like ask the developer interviews and like media things that aren't just like written press releases, then I'll show up for sure. All right, Mark, that was the direct. What the hell was this thing?
So weird. Thank goodness we have a Switch 2 direct to look forward to next week, because I'm still, despite what happened today, still fingers crossed that all will be revealed, that we will have, so much more clarity on 2025 coming out of next week.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's always weird to be in a position where we don't have any Nintendo release dates, which is where we are right now. No first party games have release dates. But then also like Nintendo's got to have something big to go with the, or you don't necessarily believe that, but it is likely that they have some kind of big game this year that's not just Metroid Prime 4, but maybe that is the big game. Who knows?
No. I want to be very clear. I think that Nintendo's will have a stacked 2025 of Switch 2 games.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's probably going to be and this is not a prediction, but I think there's going to be like a 3D Mario in the fall. Like, I think that stuff is coming. I'm talking about day one launch.
Yes.
I think Metroid Prime 4 could be a day one launch title for Switch 2, and that it would be fine. Everything would be fine.
Sure. Everything would be fine. It's just not going to be super exciting, right? But you know, regardless, I forget how I was even winding up here. It just highlights how we called last year a weird year. This is a console launch year, and I think it is also going to be a weird year.
Oh yeah, totally. But has the potential to be really awesome. We're just outside of Nintendo's normal patterns that they've had for like the last decade.
Right. And even Nintendo doesn't like stick to their normal
Did you
patterns.
think Miyamoto was going to tell us that Nintendo Directs were no more?
I did.
It seemed like that's where the windup was going. That was like, for the last however many years, we've been doing Nintendo Directs.
Which have turned into something that people watch.
But now, in the Switch 2 era, we're doing something different. That's really where I thought it was going.
Right. We will be executing a Nintendo fan live on camera. No, but I mean, like, I do think that the app that they're like pitching here, if they genuinely are moving so many of their like promotional efforts to it and off of social media, which they didn't say.
No,
right?
no.
They didn't say like you'll go here instead of to Twitter. But if that is what is happening, that it is like kind of a seismic thing, and I hope they can do it. I hope they can make it worth it, I guess.
Maybe tomorrow we'll wake up and the announcement of Planet Robobot is dropped in Nintendo Today.
Yeah.
Or Nintendo Now. What is it called? Nintendo Today.
Yeah. They find a way to make it so you can't screenshot it. All right. Yeah. I mean, who knows? We've said everything that we can possibly say about this Direct. Mark, let's close this out. Normally at this point, I would ask the listeners to write into us with their own reactions to this Direct. But frankly, we don't have any time for that, right? Tuesday, we're going to be doing your listener predictions to the
Switch 2
thank you
Direct
the next Thursday, and then that Wednesday, sorry. And then Wednesday afternoon, we will be doing another one of these where we are talking about that Switch 2 blowout Direct. So let's all just enjoy the ride, I guess. Okay, thank you to our 16-bit patrons, Connor McCabe, Patrice Millette, Kyle Seaborn, Drew Mackey, and Steve-O. If you're not in our Discord, you should be. Email us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. I'll send you an invitation. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. From my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.